Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to AVX Live. I'm Joe Gilderson, President of Corporate Audio Visual Services, and I am joined by my co-host, Ryan Fitch.
Hello, everyone. Good to be back.
We did take a week off, Ryan, and that wasn't even up to you.
Yeah,
But
well,
we are back now, and that's what's
right.
important. So here we are. We're in August. It's already August, in what is typically the slowest month of our year for us in the New York market. Most people are vacationing. They're out in the Hamptons, they're having one of those like we're all white parties and things like that. They're preparing for the upcoming school year, or they're planning their fall events.
Right.
Yeah, good stuff. Last week, of course, like I said, we took the week off. There were some unforeseen circumstances. You know what I mean by that, Ryan? Unforeseen circumstances.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Unforeseen, yes.
That's right.
But those aren't really important right this second. We're back and we're ready to go, just raring to prepare for the fall. Raring. But before we get into today's topic of discussion, why don't you... Oh, there were shades. Yeah,
Thanks,
see,
Tom. At least somebody noticed.
Knew I should have worn. Ryan, why don't you tell people about how they can be a part of this?
Okay, well, as always, do us a favor. Smash the subscribe button. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all of the above. It is super, super helpful on whatever channel you may be watching this on, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. Maybe one day we'll get around to posting this stuff in other channels. But until then, if you could show some love on those channels, we would very much appreciate it. It does help us out a lot, and it lets us know that we're not talking to nobody, and that's always nice. So please, and if you have questions, go ahead, type in a comment. We'll see it, just like Tom. Be like Tom. Say something, and we'll bring you into the broadcast and answer any questions that you may have.
Very cool, Ryan. 1:00 Wednesdays.
1:00 Wednesday. Oh, I missed like half the job. Wow.
Star-studded guests coming up in the next couple of weeks.
That's right.
All right. So I guess we've smashed enough. So maybe we should tell people what we're going to discuss today, because we don't have a guest.
That's right. And I'm not sure what we're talking about. So why don't you take this one?
Well, I don't mind if I do. Thank you. Hold on. Let's see. So today. Sorry, let me go back over here.
We're working on the camera takes because Joe doesn't know to time it with a transition of content. This is 101.
It's not as easy as it looks.
Well, usually there's people to be behind the scenes, but we're usually behind the scenes and we're in front of the scenes.
It's hard to do both.
It is
both parts of this show.
It's hard.
But either way, today we wanted to talk about what's the current status and the update on what's going on in the events industry, very much specifically in the Northeast. But what everybody's asking is what's going on, what are you guys seeing, and how can I plan for this very unpredictable time? And so we thought we'd give an update as to what we're seeing, what information we're hearing, so that people can continue to enjoy their summers, but yet plan for those fall events. That's right. Ryan, why don't you start us off with the first topic?
Well, it sounds like New York State has lifted restrictions as of June, when 70% of adults were determined to have at least had one dose of vaccination, giving businesses the option of limiting capacities, social distancing, and for many, wearing a mask. So the rules are gone. We're done. We're having fun. Is that right, Joe?
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
Of course, CDC came out last week and said, hey, we'd like to recommend people who have had vaccinations wear a mask on indoor events. Right. I think that caught a lot of people off guard because they thought they were free as a bird. And, now we're back to wearing masks and be involved in things. I know I was talking to a friend of mine who's out in Las Vegas. He's at the Wynn Hotel, exceptional property out there. And he's in charge of a lot of their events and productions. And he said, look, everybody on the staff fully masked all the time. Indoors, outdoors, wherever. They're wearing masks all the time. Now, the guests, I don't think they've really pursued that avenue right this second, even though I'm pretty sure that is one of the counties in Nevada that they were trying to get everybody back on to wearing a mask.
Well, one of the things was, we were talking about was, all right, it's part of the uniform, right? That way we're kind of punting, is we're not involved in discussion because now it's just part of the uniform. And at the very least, they don't need to worry about our staff, following whatever necessarily masking guidelines are happening where we're at.
Yeah, it is interesting because right before I think, the governor had lifted those restrictions, we had a series of events that were combined indoor, outdoor types of things.
Right.
And they said, listen, the guests, we're going to do some testing for when they arrive. But all the staff, they said, you got to be vaccinated or you have to have a test with showing negative within 72 hours. Of course, they did only tell us that about 12 hours before the event, but we'll leave that little detail out for
right. Yeah, little lack of guidance ahead of time, but I mean that kind of comes to the territory right now. People are kind of figuring things out as they go, and new information comes out, and then we have to respond to that. Speaking of new information,
we do have very, very new information from yesterday. Just yesterday, New York City will be implementing the key to the NYC pass as of August 16th. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that people are going to be required to show proof of at least one dose of vaccine for workers and customers in order to attend any indoor event. So movies, entertainment, restaurant, gym, all of those things that in the rest of the state, it's left to be optional. You are now going to have to prove it. And as of September 13th, I guess the vaccination police are coming out. I mean, I'm not sure how that's going to work. But
now, Joe, have you ever been to a location where it was checking proof at the door?
No.
Well, I can say that I personally have. It was a bar. And I am personally vaccinated, and so we had to pull up whether it was the laminated. Some people laminated it, but some people pull up their card. They also looked at proof on the phone, whether it was a photo of that card. Somebody that was with me that was vaccinated didn't have their card, didn't have a photo, showed the CVS appointment scheduled, and that was enough. So then the question becomes what is exactly considered proof, right? And I don't know that we have exactly clear guidelines on that or how stringent those policies are going to be. So I guess that sort of remains to be seen, unless there's information that I'm missing, which is entirely possible.
Well, I think what New York City is doing, because New York City will certainly be the largest city, and right. I think one of the first metropolitan areas to really put this in place is based off of what France is doing. France put this in place, I want to say just a few weeks ago. Obviously, a lot of people were not happy with that, but they're trying to stop this Delta variant. So it's based on what France is already doing. Except France, I believe, has an alternative where you can show some sort of negative test, whereas New York City is not giving you an alternative. There is no show a negative test. And my understanding is that the basis behind that is to try to push people on the vaccination side, really apply pressure. They've also, on the positive side, they've been offering $100 for anyone to receive their vaccination, which is free, from a designated city site. They have a whole bunch of sites listed on the website, and you can call. But they've actually gotten 11,000 people additionally to get vaccinated since they put that into play.
Well, they say money talks, right?
Well, it's apparently true.
Yeah. Put your money where your arm is, I guess. I don't remember getting my $100, but neither here nor there.
No. But, and then they also announced that any New York City employees that are new employees are required. So it's mandatory for them to get vaccinated, or they face weekly testing. So I think it's a balance. New York City's taking that step first because, remember, they took a tremendous hit during all this.
Yes.
And there are many hotels which are not open. There are many restaurants which are not open. It's still very much a ghost town. And they need tourism, and they need the city to come back. So, I understand why they're doing it. It's a big, bold move. And, they're just trying to get get the city opened up, and I guess this is the path they chose.
Right, and then we're left trying to sort it all out on the event side. But I guess if there is good news, it's that New York and the Northeast are not what I guess we call problem areas when it comes to this Delta variant. We're the lowest rising area on the U.S. map.
I know.
The map.
I'm getting there.
Oh God, you blew it. You had one Q on the U.S. map. There we go. Boom, map. But apparently things are still rising rather quickly. Our hospitalizations are much lower due to the high rate of vaccination, which is a good thing, objectively. People not in the hospital in the ICU, there's no other way to say it than that is an objectively good thing. But of course, these cases are still rising, so we're having to respond to that. Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Texas seem to have it the worst off. We know Florida is a big events market, especially for us in the AV industry. We know that that's a major hub for a lot of AV providers in the live event space. But of course their policies have been sort of a little more lenient all throughout this thing. So, we'll have to kind of see how this shapes up. So I guess the question becomes, how does this affect event decisions? We've been talking a lot about things that are more or less 90 feet over our head, but the events ramifications, honestly, that's something that's obviously going to affect us, and I think the first thing everybody's wondering is, will there be another lockdown?
Well, Finch, if you like, I'll actually field this question.
Please do.
Totally unqualified.
Ground ball. Yeah, exactly.
Not qualified to answer. Let's just go on record for saying that.
He doesn't know.
No idea. However, I would take the information that I would make other decisions on and use that same information to apply here. Public perception is distinctly different than it was a year ago, and longer. Certainly, the travel is opened, even though most of these airlines aren't very good right this second. I think the fact that the school and education system was just so ineffective last year when closed, I think is going to be a driving factor. I think there's tremendous economic pressure, to keep everything open. Right. And I also think the current situation of our governor is not going to give him a lot of power and force to push things through and close things up.
Right.
So I don't see that personally, my opinion. I don't see a lockdown coming. I also think because most of the area, and that includes the Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, most of the Northeast has a much higher vaccination rate.
Right.
And they're just not seeing the level of hospitalizations, and they're not seeing the deaths, quite frankly, that we might be, head down that road. So I don't see it personally, but right. I'm not qualified to answer.
Yeah, exactly. But how about adjustments that we've seen? Because that's a little more tangible, something that we can directly speak to.
Well, I think there's a lot of adjustments, right? I think the first thing is just from the staffing side, right? From the event support staff side. I think people are going to find themselves in a position that it is easier to get vaccinated than to have to submit to weekly tests all the time, because every event's going to require something. So I think that's one adjustment that is going to get in the way of people's ability to work in certain cases, especially in New York City. All those events indoors are going to apply. But let's look at, what we're seeing from the clients. Certainly, we've already seen some October events move to September.
Right.
November is not as fully planned as
right.
September and October right now. And I think that's just due to weather, to be very honest. Right. We have a lot of people that are still looking at having some sort of outdoor part of their event. Mm-hmm. Not all, but certainly, a lot of people. There are still a lot of tents involved, and tents are in very high demand still.
Right.
In May and June, there literally were no tents.
Right.
You couldn't find any tents.
Yeah.
Apparently, people are finding tents, but they're in high demand. I also think we've already heard about there being less people. Yeah. At the events.
I mean, I've already heard that on 2 fall events upcoming, is that they've decided to scale back attendance and leading towards there being virtual components, but just the fact that there will be fewer people on site makes impacts on the on the planning process, both for the venues and catering and obviously for AV as well, because the scale just goes down.
Hey, I have late breaking news here from my friend Maddie Olson, who's out in the Wynn Hotel out in Las Vegas.
Okay.
Masks are now for guests too. So that's I think that's new just from last week. Last week when we were talking, I don't think guests had to wear them, but it looks like he has late breaking information. See, this is a nationwide show, Ryan. This is where people are coming. Hold on. Can I get it?
No.
For hard hitting.
There we go. That was good. I wish I had soloed you for that.
Yeah, well, you didn't. So, either way, thanks, Maddie. Appreciate the help on that, because that's what we need is current information.
Right. Well, we talked about less people at the events. Mm-hmm. This premise of dinner by the bite, I'm going to need some help on this one.
Well, that's from our friend Robert Sanders of HRG. That's who
I know him.
That's like his favorite phrase is dinner by the bite. Basically meaning no sit-down dinner,
right?
Cocktail, fast food, so that people are more mobile. They're not, there's not 10 people at a table, 12 people at a table. I think they're just trying to keep the event a little more fluid. They're having less people, but it, that's I've seen that come up now probably 5 or 6 times.
Right.
So that seems to be a change.
Grab and go.
It also shortens the event.
Right.
So you're not there for 4 hours. You're there for 2.5 hours. A different perspective, right?
Absolutely. Well, how about vaccinations? Any sort of mandates, at least in the local circuit?
Well, that we're hearing a lot of.
Yes.
Part of it is because we have a lot of healthcare clients,
right.
A lot of hospital, a lot of healthcare clients. So I think the first part is, for their events, they're saying vaccinated only. We've already heard that from 3 or 4 different people.
Yes.
Now, others are not saying that. But there are particular events too. Like we have a big event. It's a week-long series, the Westchester Wine and Food Festival coming up. That is going to be, that's put on by Westchester Magazine, and that's going to be vaccinated only. And you are going to have to actually show a pass or show your card or whatever the information is. But that's the last week of September. Series of events, really cool. But you are going to have to actually show proof of vaccination for that. So I'm hearing it more and more, not at everything, but it's certainly a balance. But that's I think that might be where we're heading on certain things.
Right. No, and speaking, from just a purely personal experience, that anecdote I mentioned about being in a New York City bar, the idea of being, and that was actually one of the first times I was out kind of in a public arena, maskless. And it was a very nerve-wracking at first, to be totally honest with you.
That sounds dirty, by the way. I'm just saying.
What?
Maskless. I don't know.
Maskless.
It seems like inappropriate almost.
It does, right?
I'm going to go off screen.
It did make me feel comfortable. I will say that. And again, that is just a purely personal feeling that I had, was that it felt comfortable knowing that the environment I was in was a purely vaccinated crowd. So you could look at it 2 ways, one of which is, all right, you're alienating those who, don't feel comfortable with it for whatever reasons they may be. But you're also creating an atmosphere where those who are vaccinated, which, as we've just said, us in the Northeast and New York in particular, there's a higher rate. You are making or creating an environment where your audience feels comfortable. I mean, how many conversations did we have earlier in the year that when we get back to this stage, it was going to be a little bit of a battle of perception and how the audiences are going to feel and whether or not they will feel safe in that, kind of in-person setting. And so, you could look to a vaccinated only event as creating a feeling safe environment. So there are some positives to take from that, and we'll have to take that for what it is.
Well, I think every client knows their audience, and I think they just have to listen to their audience, just like you would on anything else, right? We had an interesting idea come up from Charisse from Events to Remember just a couple of weeks ago, where she had spoken about there being wristbands. and that maybe you could identify, what your level of comfort was. And so we finally tracked these things down. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
That is
I'm
interesting.
assuming red is, back up, dude. Like, I don't want you anywhere near me. Yellow is, I don't know, maybe we like bump elbows. I'm not sure. And green is like bring it in for the hug, like
Right.
I think there's some sort of visual cue, but
Now, I do
it's a
like
different idea.
it is a different idea. I like that. I wish that we could adopt that outside of the sphere of pandemic, because there are days where I'd love to have a red wristband on. That means nobody's going to bother me. I mean, how many times do you can go out to the gym, or you're working out, or, you're going to the grocery store, you're in a rush. I would love to be able to just signify in a visual way that I don't want you to talk to me. So I don't know. I'm a big I'm a big fan of.
Let's just keep moving here.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of things going on. But what about the corporate offices, right? I mean, New York
Right.
City has been like a ghost town for a reason.
Right.
All those high rises have not had anybody working. Everybody's been working at home. Now, I know that there's a lot of organizations looking to get those firms, get all those employees back. And so that's a pretty big deal, because most of these people, they may or may not be willing to go back. So I think they have their own challenges. But I know there's Morgan Stanley was really one of the first companies. They're making a very big push. Certainly, JP Morgan Chase is kind of on the heels, but I don't know if they pulled the trigger yet. But I looked up just to see who had mandated, that people that were in their offices were vaccinated. It's a huge list.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, the ones that jumped off quickly, of course, were BlackRock and other financial. But how about DoorDash and Uber and Disney and Walmart, New York Times, Delta, United Airlines? And then you hit all the tech companies with Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, Twitter, Facebook. I mean, so people are. And the interesting one on the event side is Union Square Hospitality Group, which is certainly a big player in the New York market. I think they have different properties in DC and maybe Philly as well. But it is really interesting. Now, most of those are related to offices, but if you combine that with the New York City indoor policy and that key to NYC pass, there certainly is a big push. Whether people agree with it or not is an entirely different thing, but there is definitely a big push so that everybody can be working again. So we'll see how it plays out, really,
That's right. Well, I would say if there is a positive to take from all of this in the event season, a stark contrast to what we experienced in late February, early March of 2020. Something that we have not had a lot of, or really any of at this point, is straight cancellations, straight event cancellations. There was a time where they were dropping like flies. Every time you answer the phone, it was another event canceling. And that was soul crushing, I think is probably the best word that I could use to describe it. And this time around, again, fortunately, we have not seen groups outright cancel. They've gone, I hate to use the word pivot because I think we got a little bit tired of that, unless you're a fan of Friends, in which case, pivot! What we do expect is more... Joe doesn't get that joke, which
I wish I had the sunglasses.
You're so
I wish
out
I
of
had the
touch.
sunglasses.
You're so out of touch. I can't even believe this.
I know what it refers to.
Oh, you do?
I did watch the series, but that was like 25 years ago before you were born, so.
It's timeless.
Okay.
Anyway, more hybrid. This is really, honestly, the safest solution for a lot of these groups that have already, signed contracts and put things in place. And honestly, a lot of the people that were, otherwise looking forward to attending these events are still looking forward to attending these events. I can speak for myself in person. I'm really looking forward to being back around people. Smaller in-person crowds, I think, are to be expected, but also to stream the content. To try to create a digital experience for those who are either unvaccinated or just uncomfortable with attending or exceed the cap that we put on, an in-person event. So hybrid and oddly enough, Joe, I think we were really expecting hybrid to flourish more than necessarily it did. I think there was an immediate scramble to get back in person. It was comfortable,
Yep.
it's familiar. These people, especially on the event planning side, they knew how to do that part. And, there were no additional flaming hoops to jump through. Camera 2, when he wasn't even talking. I can't believe this. Anyway.
I have a reason.
Okay, well, Joe, what's that reason? Hit it.
Would you like the reason?
Yeah.
Okay. Because 79% of our September and October events are scheduled to be in person.
Wow.
Only 12% are scheduled to be virtual.
Yeah.
Once that June date happened and the restrictions were lifted, everybody just jumped right into planning that. Now, hybrid at this exact second only represents about 9% of our events.
Right.
Not many. We thought that hybrid would be 80%.
Yeah.
To be honest, but it just didn't play out like that yet.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean it won't.
Right.
But it didn't play out like that so far.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see just what happens when we come back to camera one.
Nailed it. See, that's what I'm looking for. That's what our audience expects. And scene. No, that camera change aside. Absolutely, I'm glad that those numbers are represented because I was kind of just pulling from based on observation.
You were making things up, I know.
No, not making things up. Okay,
I'm
back in the office. I'm
Alexa
not.
Thank you, Alexa, for providing me the information.
There you go.
Everybody met Alexa, right?
That's right. They did. Alexa, a new part of our team, along with Marissa. We are adding because there is still work happening and things aren't canceling, and so that is objectively a good thing from our perspective. But yeah, I think hybrid is the way to go for the time being, and ultimately we're looking forward to to showing audiences what we can do as far as that's concerned, because so much of it is wrapped up in the technology.
Well, I have a little teaser for next week. Next week, thank you.
Somebody's watching. There you go.
Next week, we're actually going to have one of our clients who just did a hybrid event. And they did it the way that we've been speaking about for months, in the sense that they really did consider two separate audiences. And so we're going to have Kate on from Global AG, and she's going to be describing kind of what they went through in their thought process. Right. Because, again, we are expecting this to be something everyone's going to have questions on. Mm-hmm. And it's not a fit for everybody. But, get the information and then make that determination based on what the current facts are. That's just, the teaser for next week.
Week, what is to come?
Ryan, can I just tell you quickly before we get into another thing that is to come? Okay. I want to discuss technology successes and failures that I've witnessed over the last week.
I would love to hear about them.
Well, thank you. Let's start with the success first, okay? Let me go to an image of success that I have recently adopted.
Wow.
An electronic toothbrush.
Wow.
Now, I haven't used one of these before. I have to tell you, it's a really good experience.
Okay.
My mouth is very pleased.
That's all great. I'm saying. Are your gums healthier?
They do, they do feel slightly healthier.
Okay.
So that's all we're going.
All right.
I'm also going to give you an example of something that I'm blown away by how poor the technology is.
Here we go.
Yes. So I had to go into one of these electronic coffins here, otherwise known as an MRI. I have to tell you, that was really unpleasant. And I just can't imagine, for all the money that thing probably cost, that we couldn't come up with a way to do that and have it not be 2 inches from your nose and be locked in a chamber for 30 minutes with some sort of pounding noise in your ear. There has to be a better way.
Hot seat, Siemens. Hot seat.
I mean, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, Siemens, but I mean,
it feels like you did.
There has to be a better way, is what I'm saying. And with all of the biotech companies that we have in this area, somebody has to be able to create this thing.
Now, Joe.
Yes.
Why were you in an MRI? You weren't getting out of this without telling that. Come on.
Well, listen, Ryan, we had a little bit of a wing injury, so
yeah.
We seem to have torn a wing, but we're mobile now. I mean, we're working on it.
And how are you doing that, Joe? Tell our audience. Come on, don't hold back.
Listen, Finch. we're trying to keep in good health. And so we happen to be lifting some weights, and the weights, the mind said one thing, the body said another. I mean, what can I tell you?
Okay, I'll let you off the hook on that one. And the good news is, as our friend Alexa did say, is that Joe has learned the power of breathing, mindfulness.
Yes. Namaste. Yes. Right there.
Oh, boy. Well, so that was...
This is an international show.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And hopefully Siemens International presence is watching, taking note. They're saying, wow, Joe Gilderson said you need to do it better. And they said, okay.
Listen, I hope this is about customer experience, right? And my experience really sucked. So that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
It could be better. It could be better. So
Fair.
We're talking about technology. Listen, we have something coming up in just a couple of weeks.
Uh-oh.
Talk about technology. September 1st and 2nd, we'll have our own hybrid event. Okay, where we call Pirate University, is where we have in-house training. This year, we're going to open that in-house training up to different technical staff around the country, clients, venues, anyone who'd want to participate. We're going to be featuring the event, of course, in person in our warehouse, as well as online with our Hop-In virtual platform that we've been using now for, I guess that's a year at this point.
Wow.
And we'll be discussing other software, other online technologies, Zoom, vMix, physical things that you have to touch to make them work for our in-person events. It's going to be a great time. September 1st and 2nd. More to follow.
Yes, indeed. And we're very excited about that. I look at it as a way not only to create a nice event, but also we'll be practicing what we preach a little bit. We'll be showing an example of how we can have an effective hybrid event with a wider reach, cast a wider net. You've heard it on this show before. We'll be casting a wider net. We'll be having content in person, content virtually, and that's all coming together right now. So stay tuned for more information, because we're really excited about this one. So, and Joe, now how many years have we been doing this?
This will be, I believe it's a 7th or 8th year.
7th or 8th year. Okay.
Yeah, it's what started was very small. So it's a question of really if we started that in 2013 or 14. And then it's kind of gradually become more involved each year because there was a good response, and people were getting things out of it.
Right.
And I mean, it all started really because we were looking for something to bring on entry-level people into the stagehand and the AV world. And there really just was no information except, hey, kid, go move that case over there. Like there was nothing, So people would take years to actually learn things, and that's not that helpful. So we started with our own brand of, okay, here's the basics you need to learn. Now you get in the field, and now you can be a contributing member of society at that point. And then every year it's added on. So now there's really different levels of technology. So it's not just any entry-level things. Honestly, there's more mid-tier and higher level at this point. But it's a constantly evolving scene. And then we started getting into, of course, customer service and customer experience training. And now this year we're actually going to be including some leadership training based on some other things that we've been doing. And we have a special guest that just signed on yesterday. So looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. Schedule coming soon.
All right. Well, with that, what do you say we wrap this thing up, huh?
I think we can do that, Finch.
There you go. 35 minutes. Look at us.
Oof,
we did it.
Man. Who knew that we could talk for that long?
I did.
Yeah,
well, every Wednesday, 1 p.m., more hard-hitting guests, just like you heard Joe describe for next week. Wednesdays at 1 o'clock, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever it is that you watch, please show us some love. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all the above. Leave us a comment if you have a question, and we will answer it live. Just as you saw some people comment in here, it's helpful to to get you all involved. So we appreciate it, and we are looking forward to doing this again next week.
Sounds good.
All righty. Well, until then,
let's take us out.
Hasta la vista.
Ciao, ciao.
Oh.